Here's a rephrased version of your video script, maintaining the same writing and articulating style with slightly altered word order. They never expected me to appear. Honestly, I'm not even certain I expected it myself. The wedding invitation rested on my desk like a challenge. Thick cardstock, gold-embossed letters, a single name printed crisply across the front, Major General Evelyn Maddox. Not Evelyn, not Evie, certainly not our daughter. Just a title. As if that made me more palatable. 6 years. That's how long it had been since I'd heard my parents' voices, in any form other than a mistakenly forwarded voicemail or a name mentioned with pity at a military gala. No calls on my birthday, no messages when my hearing was almost lost in Helmand. Just silence, a cold, deliberate silence. But now I receive a wedding invitation to my sister Haley's big day, with a handwritten note inside. Behave, not we miss you, not hope to see you. Just that one word, as if I were a threat. I turned it over in my hand, wondering how they had even obtained my mailing address. Perhaps they hadn't. Maybe the Army's event protocol team had forwarded it. Or perhaps Haley simply decided her little PR stunt wouldn't be complete without. The family disgrace relegated to the back row. This was no olive branch. It was a performance, and I wasn't invited to be part of the family. I was invited to be proof that they had tried. That's the peculiar thing about revenge stories. People assume they begin with rage, but mine, it began with disbelief then. A kind of quiet, aching curiosity. Did they even recall how to spell my name? Outside, the wing tapped against the window pane, as if it had something to impart. I leaned against the sill, gazing out across the Stuttgart training grounds. A new group of recruits was in mid-drill, young, hopeful, boisterous. They didn't yet comprehend what it meant to be erased by the very people who had raised you. I envied that. A knock broke the stillness. My aide, Simmons, entered without waiting. "You're going?" he inquired, his eyes darting to the envelope. He always knew more than he revealed. "Just received the invite," I replied, my voice flat. He raised an eyebrow. "That's what we're calling it?" I didn't answer because it wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge, a test, perhaps a warning, and I hadn't yet decided whether to walk away or walk straight in. Either way, I'd bring the stars on my shoulders, not to flaunt them, but to remind them they no longer had the luxury of erasing me in silence. Virginia greeted me like a postcard someone forgot to personalize. Pristine cherry blossoms, immaculate sidewalks, hedges trimmed with surgical precision. To clean, to staged, the sort of place that appears perfect from a distance until you draw near. I pulled into the cul-de-sac and parked across from the house I once called home. Everything looked precisely the same, which, in a way, made it worse. I hadn't returned since my father's funeral, not truly. Back then, there wasn't even a seat reserved for me in the front row. I stood the entire time in full uniform, while my mother sat between Haley and Uncle Roy as if nothing were amiss. Today it was my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, and somehow that stung more. I knocked. A pause, then came the scent, lemon polish. Barbara Maddox's signature. The aroma of disapproval disguised as cleanliness. The door opened. She stared at my uniform for a beat too long. "Evelyn," she said, her voice even, "please don't ruin this for Haley. No hello, no you look well, just a warning." I nodded, barely. Inside, nothing had shifted. The same china cabinet, the same chandelier, the same tension humming beneath the mahogany table. 14 people sat around it. 15 seats. Guess which one was mine? The far end, right beside the sideboard. The single spot where the kitchens he would warm your back just enough to keep you uncomfortable, not beside Haley, not even in. The center, they knew precisely what they were doing. No one announced, "Evelyn's back," no one introduced me. I was simply present, like a shadow in a starched uniform. One cousin glanced up and whispered to someone beside her. I caught the word security. I didn't even flinch, but perhaps you've experienced it. Walked into a room that once held your memories and felt like a stranger. If that has ever happened to you, I wager you still remember the silence more vividly than any laughter. It's wild how easily people can erase you in plain sight, isn't it? The reception ballroom resembled a magazine spread. White linen, gold-rimmed plates, an absurd ice sculpture shaped like intertwined initials. Everything about it screamed perfection except the seating chart. My name wasn't there. I stood before the brass easel, scanning down the rows. Haley and Andrew at table 1, our parents at table 2, cousins at 3 and 4, and so it continued. No Evelyn Maddox, no Major General, just a tiny E. Maddox scrawled in small print at table 12, near the catering exit. The napkin at my place was a subtly different shade of creamus light, but clear discrepancy, not a mistake, but a message. I had witnessed battlefields with less precise calculation. Haley glided through the room as if she owned the very air. Her dress flawless, makeup perfect, that characteristic smile that made people trust her, even as she twisted the knife. She paused near my table just long enough to smile and say, "I instructed them not to make your side too military looking." Then she walked away before I could reply. I wasn't surprised. Yet still, I had saved her fiance's life, and now I was being treated like an unacknowledged +1. The toasts commenced. Dad spoke first, toasting new beginnings. Mom added, to loyalty and grace. Both looked directly through me. No mention of the daughter who had flown halfway across the world. No thanks for attending. No welcome back. Then Haley took the microphone. Champagne flute in one hand, she swirled it as if it were a Broadway moment. To think, she said sweetly, even my big sister made it tonight, flying all the way from wherever she guards doors now. The room erupted in laughter, not softly, not awkwardly. It was the kind of laughter that comes easily when the target isn't present. Except this time, I was, and then Barbara, my mother, chimed in from table 2, she's the shame of this family, but at least she's punctual. That was it, the entire ballroom plunged into full laughter. Glasses clinked, no one appeared uncomfortable. No one attempted to stop it. I didn't get angry, I didn't cry. I stood up slowly, lifted my glass, untouched until now, and took a calm sip. The silence that followed wasn't because I had shouted. It was because I hadn't. I set my glass down and spoke clearly. The people I guard, I stated, outrank everyone in this room, that was all. But it struck harder than any insult they had orchestrated. No one laughed after that. Not because they understood, but because for the first time they no longer knew where to categorize me. I was still standing. Not because I had something more to say, but because, for once, I needed them to truly see me, not guess, not assume, not avoid. And then I saw him, Andrew, standing at the far end of the ballroom, positioned halfway between his new in-laws and the people who had once celebrated his commissioning. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on mine. He didn't laugh, he didn't smile. He just walked, slow, steady, with that unmistakable soldier's gait you can't fake. He moved past the cousins, the neighbors, the friends of friends, past my mother, who whispered something sharp that he ignored, past Haley, who froze mid-glance and clutched her champagne glass as if it might save her. He stopped one pace away from me, not close, not casual, but formal, and then he saluted, crisp, sharp, perfectly to regulation. Then, clear enough to slice through every chandelier and every lie in the room, he declared, "This is Major General Evelyn Maddox, my commanding officer. Please forgive my wife." You could hear the gasp before you saw who it came from. Haley's smile fractured. Her eyes widened. The microphone slipped from her hand, hit the floor, and thudded like a gavel. She fainted. Someone screamed, "A champagne!" Flute shattered. My mother stood so abruptly her chair toppled over. But me, I didn't blink, because this wasn't revenge. This was recognition, and it was long overdue. The ballroom froze, not with panic, but with something colder, realization. Then, from one of the side tables near the wine bar, a man in uniform stood. Colonel Reardon, retired, yet still proud. He raised his hand in salute. No words, just respect. Then another, General Park, Then a third, an older woman I didn't know, but whose eyes conveyed everything. She too had once worn stars for salutes for truths made visible, and no one could unsee it now. My mother attempted to speak. This is not the time, but no one was looking at her anymore. The eyes in the room had shifted, not because I demanded their attention, but because they finally comprehended what they had so casually erased. And just like that, the shame they had cast upon me fell back upon them, quietly but heavily. Andrew lowered his salute. He stepped back, ceding the floor to me. Without uttering another word, I didn't take the microphone. I didn't raise my voice, I simply stood there. And somehow, that was louder than anything they had ever said to me. The hotel lounge was hushed. Not cozy, but strategically so. Velvet chairs, dim lamps, muted voices. The kind of place where secrets didn't reverberate. Barbara Maddox sat opposite me in a pale cardigan and a blouse with pearl buttons. Not one was undone, of course. She didn't reach for me, didn't smile, just said, "You certainly made a statement." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She took a sip of her cold coffee. The media is buzzing. Some of the headlines are flattering, some aren't. Still nothing from me. I wasn't prepared, she continued. None of us were. Not Haley, not even your father if he were still. Haley fainted, I stated flatly. Barbara blinked. She has sensitivities to truth, I inquired, or to not being the center of attention. Her grip on the cup tightened. I didn't come to fight. Then why did you come? I asked. She hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. I thought perhaps you could release a statement, something neutral, clarifying that we, didn't fully understand your position. There it was. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to issue a press statement, not to correct a lie, but to protect your discomfort? She flinched, slightly, but I caught it. You have to understand, she said, we didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to protect the family's image. You were different. Loud. I wasn't loud. I replied. I was visible. That's not the same thing. Then I reached into my leather folio. I slid a document across the table. She didn't touch it, just stared. This was sent 7 years ago. I stated. An anonymous tip to the Military Ethics Board alleging I falsified combat reports, questioning the validity of my Bronze Star, claiming I was unstable, politically promoted. Barbara didn't blink. I was passed over for my first star that year. I continued, no explanation, just silence. That could have been anyone, she said quickly. You're a public figure. I slid the second page forward. Linguistic analysis, military use only, cross-referenced writing patterns, sentence structure, phrases. I tapped the bottom line. 96% match, Haley Maddox, secondary lexical contributor, Barbara Maddox. Barbara's lips parted, then closed again. For the first time, I saw it, the crack behind the pearl buttons. She began. I didn't write it, but you gave her the language, I said. The access, the documents, the tone, she sent it, but it was your fingerprints. She looked down at her coffee. It had gone cold. You didn't just ignore me, Mother, I said. You sabotaged me, quietly, professionally, efficiently. Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. I made choices, she whispered, and I paid for them. I didn't stop loving you, she claimed. No, I replied. You just stopped calling. The silence that followed wasn't angry, it was heavier than that. Do you have any idea what it feels like, I asked, to watch your mother pretend you don't exist? Her voice cracked. I was trying to protect your sister. She couldn't compete with, she didn't have to compete. I cut in sharply. She just had to show up, and you made sure I was too buried to be seen. Barbara looked older in that moment, not softer, just exhausted. She extended a hand halfway across the table. I never wanted to lose you. You didn't lose me, I said. You pushed me out the door, then blamed me for not coming home. She said nothing. Her hand remained hovering, never landed. If someone asks why I stopped coming, I continued, don't say I drifted. Don't tell them it was complicated, tell them the truth. You made a choice, and so did I. Stood, leaving the documents on the table. She didn't chase me. That's the nature of betrayal by your own mother. It doesn't require a raised voice. It just requires silence and paperwork. The breeze off the Amalfi Coast carried the scent of salt and lemon. I stood barefoot on the terrace of a small cottage nestled into the cliffs, a cup of dark espresso in one hand, the sea stretching out below me as if it had nothing to prove. For the first time in years, I felt still. No orders, no dress codes, no ceremonies or salutes, just morning light, canvas, and a silence that didn't punish me for existing. The press never received the statement they desired. I didn't offer them a quote or a sound bite, just one moment. One salute that communicated everything, and that was enough. The clip from the wedding went viral, over 3 million views in the first 48 hours. The caption read, "They mocked her until her rank silenced the room. I never commented, never shared. It never explained. I didn't need to." Weeks later, the Pentagon called. They offered me the chair position on the new Joint Ethics Advisory Board, a seat built, ironically, out of the very betrayal that had attempted to break me. But I declined. Instead, I launched the Resilience Foundation, a national resource for service members whose careers have been sabotaged by the people closest to them, spouses, siblings, parents. We assist them in rebuilding not just their clearance, but their confidence. Because sometimes the most significant battles aren't waged in uniform. They're fought at dinner tables, in family group chats, in empty seats at funerals. The irony. The people who worked hardest to erase me are the very ones who made me unforgettable. A few months ago, my mother sent a letter, handwritten. She mentioned watching my interview on PBS, the one about betrayal and chain of command. She wrote, "I didn't realize how far you had climbed. I wish I had seen you then, but that's the thing. She did see me. She just didn't want to. And now she no longer gains access to who I have become. Not because I hate her, but because I finally love myself enough to choose distance, without guilt. The military taught me how to lead under fire, but exile? My family taught me that, so I made peace with it. This morning, the boy from the village came by with a basket of bread and olives. He asked in broken English, 'Were you really a general?' I smiled. Once, I said, 'Now I'm just someone who decided not to disappear.' He grinned and ran off barefoot and laughing. I turned back toward the sea, and for the first time, the silence didn't sting. Have you ever had to walk away? Not to inflict harm on them, but to finally protect yourself. I'm not asking for specific details, just if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of someone or some silence you've endured, tell me you're here. That's all. Just drop a comment or a word. I'll read them all. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you felt seen, even just for a moment, then I'm glad we found each other.